トビデオ
In the early 90s, video game company SNK Corporation was riding high. The fighting game boom had started out with a bang thanks to Capcom's Street Fighter series, and of all the companies to successfully go head-to-head with that juggernaut of a franchise, it was SNK. They met Street Fighter's success with franchises such as Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting, games that, while looking like Street Fighter clones on the surface, had unique gameplay elements and overall presentation that helped to give them their own identity. And when combined with their innovative mechanics such as special moves and ring outs, it's no wonder SNK and Capcom had the fiercest company rivalries in the golden age of fighting games. But unlike Capcom, who were riding that Street Fighter gravy train for as long as they could, SNK was never satisfied with just one or even two fighting game franchises. They always had room for more, and they could sometimes come from the most unexpected places. One of them came from an SNK director and producer named Yasushi Adachi. He and his team had been working on an idea for a new 2D side-scroller beat-em-up, with the protagonist being various monsters. However, once Street Fighter II was released and the popularity of beat-em-ups gave way to fighting games, those plans began to change. After experiencing the dynamism of the fighting game that was dominating the arcade and console game scene at the time, we asked ourselves what kind of game design we could do, and decided to challenge that masterpiece. So with the changing of the concept to a fighting game decided, they now needed to find a way to make that fighting game its own beast. Something that can stick out from not just the competition's titles, but also the ones being produced in-house. Adachi decided to switch from a monster game to a more historical setting, one surrounding the romantic Japanese mythos of samurai and ninja, but also having non-Japanese characters such as Chinese warlords and French swordswomen to keep that international appeal. But to make it completely unique from a gameplay perspective, the fights would not be focused on combos, but on powerful weaponry. In the game, a single hit of a sword could do massive damage. In a way, your health bar was less a health bar, and more of a meter of how many mistakes you were allowed to make in a match. But to balance this, there was the addition of the rage meter, which meant that the lower your health was, the higher your damage output was as well. So on July 7th, 1993, the game was finally released as Samurai Spirits, but it would be better known by its overseas title, Samurai Showdown. The Samurai Showdown series is the fighting game fans' fighting game. While not having the mainstream recognition as other franchises such as Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and even Tekken, its one-of-a-kind gameplay combined with its period setting and colorful cast of characters has always given it a place in the upper echelons of fighting game franchises. And even when it felt like the franchise was in danger of being killed thanks to bankruptcies, ill-advised leaps to 3D, and Iroha, it has come back stronger than ever, updated to modern sensibilities, but still keeping the basic philosophy of big damage, capitalizing on mistakes, and the virtue of patience.
It is peaceful.
He is at one with nature.
This is a Kurosawa movie right here.
Absolutely.
All right, the cough, the stare down, the snow gently falling, just like here in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. You see the fox in the background? He's like, bro, what's about to happen?
Right?
I don't know what's going to happen right now.
Samurai Showdown right now. Oh, is this a technical issue?
So with Samurai Showdown being a successful game right out of the gate, it would mean that an animated adaptation would exist somewhere, right? Boy, does it ever.
Since the dawn of time, there has been war between the forces of good and evil. Now I, Amakusa Shirotoki Sara, shall end it. The last battle is at hand!
In 1994, in the lead-up to Samurai Showdown's sequel, Samurai Showdown 2, SNK commissioned a TV movie that would allow audiences to see the beloved characters of the Sam Show franchise fully animated. The result was Samurai Showdown the Motion Picture. The anime was a co-production between companies Studio Gazelle and Studio Comet. Not much to say on Studio Gazelle, as they are an outsourcing studio whose few co-productions have been forgettable crap. Studio Comet, on the other hand, is far more well known. founded in the 80s by former employees of Captain Tsubasa Studio Tsuchida Productions, Studio Comment is known nowadays as the studio behind the 2004 hit School Rumble, and the best-selling children's anime franchise Jewel Pets. But before those big hits and before SAMURAI the motion picture, their biggest claims to fame were the Dragon Quest anime series released in '89 and the 1993 Art of Fighting OVA.
What's wrong, Rio? Not too busy with the karate dojo? Dojo!
Oh yeah, we are in safe hands. As my sarcasm indicates, you can already tell that Samurai Showdown the motion picture isn't a great anime. In fact, it's the anime equivalent of a cheap replica katana that gets broken trying to cut through a liter of soda. It's just another example of cheap fighting game anime adaptations that were made less to be entertaining and more to serve as supplementary marketing material. So why did I choose this anime? Well, even with EVO cancelled this year, and maybe for the foreseeable future, I still need to get my fighting game anime quota in for the year. And what better way to do that than to explore one of the more interesting fighting game franchises and see what it had to offer.
It can't! It is, Amaxa! The people rise against you! No!
Not much, as I soon found out, but I can still give you the specifics as to why this is such a failure of an adaptation. First, the animation. Samurai Showdown, the game series, is defined a lot by how it draws from native aesthetics to create some of the most visually captivating pixel art backgrounds ever seen in a fighting game series. Seriously, even with how far technology has come, it almost feels like they've barely aged a day. So you would be happy to learn that SAMURAI the motion picture absolutely does not bother in trying to replicate the beautiful natural environments seen in the video games. They instead opt for the most uninspired, generic art direction to barely dress up the most basic locales. Thrill as your characters traipse about memorable SAMURAI locations such as nondescript town, Japanese countryside, and barren wastelands. I guess they're all saving all the artistry for the characters, which, to the anime's credit, they do look like they come from the game, if you ignore Haomaru's strangely chocolatey hair. But there's very little detail to these characters. They feel a lot more stripped down and flattened out, and like any sort of the extra flourishes that make them pop. Exasperating this is the anime's overall coloring scheme being incredibly washed out to the point where you can't even see what's going on half the time. I don't know if I'm watching a bad print or not, but there's no excuse for some of the scenes looking like bad watercolor. But you grin and bear that factor because you think that these kinds of low detail designs would give the artist more flexibility in animating these characters for the big fight scenes that everyone came to see. How do they turn out? Yep, Fatal Fury the motion picture this ain't. Going into this, I expected to see a few PowerPoint fights, but not to this level. This is the biggest indicator that most of this anime was thrown together to meet a deadline because 80% of the fight scenes lack any sort of flow or action and are more just the result of stapling storyboards together and hoping something coherent comes from it. A lot of fight scenes that you would expect involve a lot of dodging or epic clashes mostly just involve characters standing around, occasionally trading light blows until one of them enters rage mode or does a special move and ends the match right there. Which, okay, that's staying true to the spirit of SAMURAI at the least, but this is an anime. You're allowed to get creative with how characters move and fight while staying true to their original selves. And if you're saving all your animation budget for the characters' trademark super moves, why animate them so clinically? There's something wrong if you can make Kyoshiro's Twisting Heavens or Nakoruru's Mama Haha Flight look boring. Just realized that last sentence is going to come off as absolute gibberish to non-SAMURAI fans. And this may come off more as a nitpick than anything, but it also shows the weakness of having this anime be a TV film and having to censor out the blood. A bloodless Samurai Showdown definitely loses a lot of what makes it stand out. This is a series where you can launch a volley of magic arrows point blank at a 16-year-old anime girl and have her explode in a shower of blood. And removing the blood is just one small change alongside the by the numbers animation that strips SAMURAI the motion picture of any flair. It feels less like an anime and more like a substandard Saturday morning cartoon you would see on a channel like USA or something. But when you actually look at the story of SAMURAI the motion picture, you have to wonder if that was what they were actually going for. The story of Samsho, the game, is your average early 90s fighting game narrative. Shirotokisada Amakusa, pretty boy rebel leader and actual Japanese Roman Catholic martyr, has come back to life 150 years after being slain by the Tokugawa shogunate. He did this by making a deal with a dark god named Ambrosia and has been resurrected as an evil sorcerer. So naturally, dozens of warriors from across the globe converge on Amakusa before he uses his dark powers to destroy the world, each one with their own motivations. Simple plot, but has enough material that any driven screenwriter could wring out some compelling narrative to craft into an anime. But there's limits. The whole plot of the anime is centered around taking down Amakusa, but they do this by having the heroic characters be a part of this global Super Sentai-esque team called the Six Holy Warriors.
You're just like the rest of us, Haomaru, one of the Holy Warriors.
A holy warrior?
Now, I'm not going to get into the complete ahistoricism that entire plot point bleeds because 1, I don't care, and 2, Samurai Showdown is a franchise that has nothing but scorn for historical accuracy. But if you are going to spend the opening minutes of the anime cutting to our heroes in their country of origin, noticing something bad is brewing on the island nation of Nippon, then why are you just going to have them show up in Japan almost a few minutes later with no explanation? I get that this is supposed to be a short montage setting up our 6 heroes, but it becomes completely pointless when they all end up being killed by Amakusa as a showcase of their power, and end up being reincarnated anyway, 100 years with the same looks, personality, and equipment. Just show Amakusa having their Rita Repulsa moment and then cut to the present time with everyone assembled. Adding the reincarnation aspect is just an unnecessary plot point. And that whole team aspect? It never appears to fit within the plot in any meaningful way because the 6 heroes never seem to work as a unit. The main plotline, aside from defeating Amakusa and their goons, is the rest of the Holy Warriors having to convince Haomaru, Samsho's main protagonist, to be a part of their team because he was their leader a century ago.
So, unlike the rest of us, Haomaru doesn't remember he was a holy warrior.
It would explain why his technique is also so poor.
But with the plot depending on Haomaru having to learn a lesson on the importance of teamwork, the 6 Holy Warriors never appear to operate as a team. Oh sure, they fight together and get captured together, but there's no real sense of what exactly brings these people together aside from fate or destiny, I suppose. They don't really have any meaningful interactions with one another that suggest they are comrades in arms. Most of the dialogue between them is just explaining the plot to one another.
We have got to stop him. If he gets to Ito first, the consequences could be dire.
Zenan Hokshin will eat his soul.
He'll be her pawn.
And as a consequence to that, nearly all the 6 Holy Warriors lack any of their notable personality traits from the games. Like, we see some of Galford's upbeat can-do attitude, but none of Wanfu's gallantry. The most painful being transforming the character Tam Tam from the wacky wild man of the jungle Primeval to just some guy.
He's not quite what I expected.
He is. I saw the proof.
But the weirdest thing is that this complete disinterest in characterization affects Nakoruru of all characters. She is the dual protagonist of the Samsho universe alongside Haomaru and has enjoyed years of popularity as SNK's resident moe blob. But here, she is just a glorified bystander, a role that's clearly not reflected in the official marketing of this anime. I know you need to try to fit every character from the game in this anime, keyword here being try, but you have to at least retain their personalities. Otherwise, you're just gonna have characters like Kyoshiro and Jubei just kind of being there, and Hanzo only existing to serve as yet another engine to drive the plot along by spelling it out to us.
Amakusa felled me easily enough, and the witch already knows of our plot.
Huh. And what is the Shogun doing now?
Already under Amakusa's heel, the spineless worm.
And even evil characters like Earthquake and Ganon are mostly reduced to heavy goons that only serve as obstacles to our heroes. Really, the only characters who matter in this anime are Charlotte and Haomaru. And even then, Charlotte's mostly just there as a love interest to Haomaru, which admittedly isn't deviating too far from canon, but it should be noted that he's very much taken. Also, take a shot every time she says Haomaru.
Haomaru! 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 Haomaru!
So, in the end, this anime is just Haomaru's world and we're just living in it. So what do they do with him? Well, gotta give the anime some credit, they do mostly nail Haomaru's personality. Boisterous, proud, always itching for a fight, and a bit of a dumbass. Think Samurai Goku.
A bear? A really big one?
They have no money, but the brewer said that he'd give you his daughter.
A wife? Nice try, Mom. Saki'll be fine.
But Haohmaru is also a protagonist who mainly just falls into heroism. His motivation to be the best samurai in Japan is based on his selfish desire to fight the best there is, and that usually is the main bad guy of whatever game he's in. The anime decides to make him a little more compelling by giving him a JRPG protagonist backstory where his village and loved ones are destroyed by Amakusa's bad guys. They even give him an old friend that we've never seen or heard before that's brainwashed into fighting and is immediately killed by Earthquake just to force out some emotionality that isn't there.
Kyoto! Hang in there!
Forget about me.
You killed him!
Which, okay, fine. I can understand giving Haohmaru some motivation other than fighting around Japan. But the anime doesn't trust him to even pursue that motivation. No sooner does he avenge his village by killing Earthquake than the rest of the Holy Warriors spirit him away and begin vomiting the plot all over him.
It was Amakusa Jashin's soldiers from her fortress in Edo that destroyed this village. It is Amakusa's ultimate goal to fan the flames of your burning hatred.
And while he is the first one to charge towards Amakusa's fortress, without the rest of the team I might add, there's a point in the story where Haohmaru really loses all sense of agency with the sides of Amakusa and the Holy Warriors in a tug-of-war between trying to get the swordsmen to choose their side. To really boil it down, this anime is just this scene for an hour with a few fight scenes peppered throughout.
Don't be seduced! Remember your oath as a holy warrior!
Enough! And Kokushin offers you unlimited wealth and power. Come, join us.
And before I forget, I'd like to congratulate Amakusa on finally coming out and transitioning. Yeah, Amakusa's a woman in this for some reason, which, kinda weird, but their androgyny was a central part of their design, so that change can work. But a change that doesn't work is removing the historical aspects of Amakusa's character. Instead of being a Christian martyr turned conjurer of forbidden magics, they turn her into a samurai who's pissed off at being betrayed by her liege in order to mine some tragic backstory which goes nowhere. It even extends to her weaponry. Instead of Amakusa being given their trademark atomizing magical sphere, they just decide, sword. So with so many things that make this anime not just a bad anime, but a bad Samurai Showdown anime, is there anything worth salvaging in this disaster? Kinda, but it's no fault of the anime itself. The only way I would recommend watching this anime is through its hilariously bad English dub. This is another dub from our good old friends down at ADV Films. However, unlike Air, where the actors obviously had passion for the project and had a director who knew how to coach them, there doesn't seem to be any of that here. It's like they knew they had gotten a cheap cash grab anime and decided, you know what, we're gonna give this anime the dub it deserves.
You cannot defeat Amakusa all by yourself?
Shut up! Get out of my way!
Not that everyone is phoning it in. There are some performances that at least try to capture the spirit of their respective characters, like Matt Greenfield's Earthquake.
That's your reward, Koichiro. To be killed by me, Earthquake.
But for the most part, everything from casting to performances just feel questionable at best. Haohmaru is supposed to be this hot-blooded, boastful figure, so why not give him the most generic white bread voice that sucks all the energy out of the room?
I'll kill the witch myself! Vengeance will be mine! I'll tear out her black heart!
Hey, calm down!
Galford is clearly gearing up to go on a camping trip with Shinji Ikari after this anime is over.
Well, that's the first time your nose is filled, puppy.
And Tiffany. Sweet Tiffany. Did you really have to make Charlotte sound like a warmed-over Fifi LaFume?
Where's Haohmaru?
He's already in the castle. I'm going to have to go after him. You, get the others, and follow me in.
Got it.
Au revoir, my petite potato to couch.
But the real delight is Marcy Ray as Amakusa, who somehow is underacting and overacting at the same time.
Look at this head. Your god let me die, but now I hold the very world in my grasp.
Every sentence she says throughout this entire movie sounds like it was generated from a villainous monologue algorithm, and it is a treat.
Please keep that fact in mind. My orders are law. To disobey me is to invite a long and painful death, as the last two shoguns found out.
Yes.
But as funny as this dub is, especially when some lines are shown out of context,
go ahead, kill me!
it is still not enough to save this anime from being such a slog to get through. Just because ADV punched up the script and gave Amakusa the appropriate amount of comic book villain dialogue.
Are you ready? Ready to die, Hamaru?
The uncompelling narrative and the plotting pacing just made this anime feel like an excruciating chore to sit through. In the end, Samurai Showdown the motion picture is an anime without passion. Everything from the story to the animation to the English localization was done on the quick and cheap, all made to capitalize on the then new fighting game franchise while it was still in the zeitgeist. And for those of you out there yelling at me going, well, of course the cheap cash-in anime was going to be bad, what did you expect? Sometimes you need to look at these cheap cash-ins to see what exactly makes them cheap cash-ins, because it allows you to better discern them from the projects that actually had passionate people working on them and will try their best to deliver a damn good piece of work. Hopefully, when I do my annual fighting game anime video this time next year, the anime I pick will be one of those. But judging from the average quality of fighting game anime,
Robert, wait! He can't hear you. One of the things I take pleasure in is seeing little children smile. Another thing I take pleasure in is seeing these covered with blood.
Ooh, I am the ghost of the one who was beaten to death by you in a karate match.
not holding my breath.